Looking at the book, Gunner, obviously cricket, there's a vast library of cricket books, lots of books written every year, not many books written by umpires. I can remember one done by David Shepherd a few years ago. So what was the thinking? What were you thinking when you thought, I wonder if my story would be of interest to people?
People, as you're reading it and as people know me, I'm not a great believer in talking about my occupation. I've been so lucky since the day I left school and to where I am now. I've been in the professional game, which has been wonderful. And there's been some scrapes, there's been some ups and downs, there's been some mad moments, there's been some hostility, there's been some tampering, 2 or 3 sets of tampering and things like that. And I just felt that with a lot of persuasion by my family and friends, I was not keen on this, as you well know, as you dragged me along to the libation cafe in Hove a number of times at 9 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't sure whether I was doing the right thing. And I suppose right up to the last minute, I wasn't sure I was doing the right thing. But I think people needed to know what had gone on and what had gone on in my mad life, how the game can destroy you, how people can destroy you, but with also some of the greatest and funniest moments and some of the fantastically great people I met all the way through this journey.
You talk at the beginning of the book, Gunner, about the sandpaper test in 2018 in Cape Town when you were third umpire. I mean, we won't go into the details of that because everyone knows the story and it's well chronicled in the book. I just wondered whether you think since then the standard of behaviour in international cricket has improved. Maybe what the fallout from that test was a bit of a watershed for the game.
I think it did. I think it woke everyone up. As I wrote, I think Australia were out of control leading up to that, and I had them an awful lot leading up to that mad moment in. And I still sit here now and think, well, why would you want to put sandpaper down your underpants? I haven't quite got my eyes around and head around that yet, but I think it woke the game up that you were going to get caught. The sad downside of it was that a young lad probably be pushed forward. He's the one that took a bit of a brunt for it. But the next series I did, and this was the bit that was slightly more hurtful, the next series that I did, which was in West Indies, Sri Lanka get caught doing the same thing or similar thing. So you're thinking now we've gone through all of that and the hysteria and the papers and TV, it was everywhere. In South Africa, you couldn't move without seeing something like this on being brought out. And you'd have thought from that moment on, right, an umpire is very rarely going to catch a player tampering with a ball because it's always happening behind you or many miles away. But with the modern day game, TV, every movement you make, TV have got it. So if you think you're going to, nobody's watching and you can distract the umpire or umpires to look away for some other reason and start doing whatever you want to do with the ball, like, some strange things that have happened to a cricket ball, but you're getting caught. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt there's a designated camera that will roam and watch this ball going from wherever. I believe in this instance, there was a designated camera on the Australian ball. So wherever that ball went, there was a camera. And I believe that anyone that came on the field of play, there was a camera on them. So, at the end of it, I wouldn't try now. I think if you get caught now, then you're dafter than anyone could possibly be. But it definitely changed the game. It definitely changed it.
For the better?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, I think probably I can put my, count on my fingers how many times I've had to say something that's quite stern to a player. The players that play international sport are outstanding people. You get the odd rogue, but you'll see them on TV and you're thinking, oh, I don't like him. I don't like his attitude. But you get to meet them off the field, socially, airports, aeroplanes, wherever you are, you'll suddenly find that you might have got it wrong. They're actually very decent people.
Going back to the start of your career, before cricket, Gunner, you very nearly had a career in football. And people might be surprised, given you're not the tallest, I think you're 5'6", that you were a goalkeeper at Arsenal. But in those days, in the sort of early 70s, goalkeepers didn't have to be 6'5", did they?
No, some of them shouldn't be 6'5" now, the way they're playing. But, you know, no, it was a great time. I had 3 years at Arsenal. I was, by the way, 5'8", if you don't mind. I do take umbrage slightly on that. You know, it was just a wonderful time. As I'm sitting here, there's the photo of the Arsenal team football club, 1974-75, and there's Brady, Alan Ball, Bob McNabb, you know, Peter Storey, wonderful, Charlie George, Sammy Nelson, you know, just wonderful, Frankie Stapleton. It was a wonderful time. It was a great time in my life. But as you went along, and as the older generation would know, Ipswich and Derby won what was then the Division 1, which is now the Premier League, obviously, where Les Green played in goal for Derby, who was 5'6½", and Laurie Civil was a very similar height for Ipswich. And so Derby had two big centre-halves in McFarland and whoever the other one was. And Ipswich had Kevin Beattie, people like that around him. So, you know, any cross that came in the box, there they were. All Les and Laurie had to do, or I tried to do, was stop it. So we were called line goalkeepers in those days. But no, it was a wonderful time. And as I say in the book, it was a time that, you know, it was probably the happiest time that I had before finding this occupation as an umpire.
So you're not saying that you weren't happy when you were playing and coaching, but you found your vocation in umpiring, didn't you?
Yeah. Without that, I enjoyed playing. Don't get me wrong, I love playing. But football was my first love. You know, I was lucky enough to be talented enough to go and play cricket in Middlesex, which was an extraordinary place to play. Being, you know, your home base being Lords, and then obviously getting moved down to the south coast where I bumped into the John Robert Troutbeck Barclay, the former Etonian right-handed batsman and off spinner, as posh as they come. Wonderful guy, John. He, you know, I've always said it. He was as good as Brearley. If he'd have had the luck, he was such a good captain. He'd always ask your advice and then stick to his own words. But he was just a wonderful, wonderful person, and he's someone that I owe an awful lot to. But, you know, as little people know, JRT Barclay educated Eton College, Ian James Gould, same time, educated Westgate Secondary Modern, 1 mile from the boundary of Eton College. So Johnny and I have been close friends for a very long time, just in different environments.
Tell us about those early days at Middlesex, because it was quite a hard school, wasn't it? The old pros in the mid-70s there, for a young player to come in and sort of threaten their position in the team.
Harsh is the word for Middlesex at that stage. Harsh. You know, I'd come out of the football world where everyone was on top of each other, everyone got on, everyone went for a beer together. You know, it was just a great atmosphere. It was a wonderful place to be. You got to Lords, and, you know, it's difficult trying to get into Lords at the best of times. And as older members would know, Lords, the Grace Gate and the North Gate weren't the easiest places to get into, run by a set of twins in the Farley twins, so you didn't know which one was on which gate. But if you didn't have your accreditation, you were going nowhere. And I remember my first day not being able to get in. So I had to jump the wall over the back of the Secretariat's house to get in. But it was a harsh place. I was lucky enough to be on the MCC ground staff for a few months. I did well there. I had two brilliant coaches in Harry Sharp and Len Munster, but they were not only cricket coaches, they were life coaches. You know, Harry, who went on to score for Middlesex, you know, was a wonderful, wonderful person. Wonderful person. You know, if he saw you falling away a little bit, he'd have a quiet word with you. But if you did know, if Harry said to you, well played, you had played very, very well. You know, and I speak to Mike Gatton about this an awful lot. And if you look at Mike's career, you know, phenomenal career. He reckons that probably on 8 occasions, Harry said, well played. So, he was our taskmaster. But then I was lucky enough for Harry then and Len Munster to push me. I was originally going to Kent, and my parents didn't want me to leave the Royal Borough of Slough. God knows why, but it took me 23 years to get out of there. But at the end of it, Harry sent me the way of Don Bennett. Don was a wonderful man, wonderful, wonderful character, but he was another one hard to please. So once you got through that, those three people and the two gatemen, you were in the front door, up those beautiful steps up to the change rooms. And a lot of these members here now that may be listening to me rattling on here is where the members bar is now. That used to be our changing room, and that was it. And there was a bell on the corner where members used to ring the bell and get you to come and bowl at them or whatever. It was a very strange setup, but then you had to get in the first team changing room. And that was long through the long corridors, narrow corridors, the TCCB offices on your right, which are now the physio room. And there's two doors to get through. You got through the first, you're okay. But then came this big sign, big wooden board, and you had to knock as loud as you could. And you opened the door when you were invited in, normally with a pot of tea for JT Murray or someone, or Fred Titmus or Parfitt or Price or whoever was there. And you just scurried out. You never really spoke to a senior player, which I found quite difficult when leaving Arsenal and being a person that, speaks my mind on occasions. I fell out a few times with people. But at the end of it, it became happier and happier. Mike Brearley then came through the door, and you can ask Mike. I hear he's following me in this, which is the first time he's ever followed me in anything, I think. But at the end of it is that he was a kind man, just like John Barclay. He was a kind man. And to be fair, I probably didn't understand it, probably resented it slightly. But the harshness slightly disappeared. But it was a competitive changing room, brilliant change, a great laugh. When all the youngsters came in, when Butcher came in, Graham Barlow, Gat, myself, Nigel Ross, Martin Vernon, the brilliant Wayne Daniel, Eugene Blades. It was wonderful fun. Oh my God, the scrapes we got into. But it was a good team. It was a very good team. Won a lot of things in that short period.
And a successful team, but you got a bit disillusioned there, didn't you? And ended up coming down to Sussex.
Well, I got a bit disillusioned because I was doing okay. But Paul Danton had been signed because I hadn't had a particularly good couple of years. Paul was at Exeter University, understudy to Alan Knott. And then Middlesex, rightly or wrongly, decided that, the move for Paul would be a good thing. And as it turned out for both of us, it was a good thing. Paul ended up playing for England. Top lad, good bloke. Didn't think that quite at the time, but we've aired our differences now somewhat. And he's doing a very, very good job at Kent. But the move down to Brighton was literally a breath of fresh air. It was just wonderful, wonderful to. I remember going to meet their chairman, Tony Kroll-Rees, the man, tremendous sportsman, riddled with arthritis. He was, but he was a wonderful. Another one at Sussex was a very kind man, and with John Barclay Trout. I enjoyed that. I really did enjoy it. But you also got in the changing room and you saw the talent that was in that changing room. That excited me an awful lot.
But Sussex didn't fulfil that potential, did they? I don't think. Probably a spin bowler was what they lacked in those early days in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we did. But, we did the best with it. The groundsman did the best for us. Johnny did his best. Chris Waller did his best. We got close a couple of times. We won some one-dayers, but we didn't really, Notts were the side of the time. Hadley, Rice, Hemmings, young Kevin Cooper. They were a talented side, and they had an unbelievable groundsman, Ron Alsop. Oh, he was unbelievable. Unless he painted white lines, you couldn't find a pitch half the time. He was just wonderful. And then when he did find it, he kicked it away, and it was all dust for Eddie Hemmings. So, but those are the sort of things you could do in those days. And now if you paint the white line the wrong way, someone's going to jump on you. But they were fun times. They were real good times. But yeah, it was sad. The club I ended up following Trout in as captain, and that was always going to be a hard task. But I was just babysitting for the next generation.
Were you a reluctant captain, you think?
Huh?
A reluctant captain?
Oh, definite reluctant captain. You had to start behaving. Good God, yeah. Make sure you had your tie on every day. And I didn't enjoy that year or year and a half. I didn't enjoy that at all.
Lord's final.
Sorry?
You won a Lord's final.
Yeah, we won the 1986
Nat
West. And then 87, we played some half-decent cricket. But at that stage, players were getting a little bit fed up with the club. You know, there was no money around. It was there was always this tinkering with, we need to be playing Sussex-based players, which was fine. I had no issues with that, but we had to have Sussex-based players that were good enough to play in the team, which the following year we probably did. You know, the two Wells brothers, Colin really burst through 86, 87, really burst through, and very unlucky not to play more times for England. Then his brother Alan came through, who ended up being a very, very good cricketer, very talented lad. So, you know, that ambition was there, but we didn't do it right. We lost Imran, we lost Garth, we lost Gian Mendes, who was a very fine player, Gian. He was a fine player. He was very, very unlucky not to play. Very unlucky not to play for England, especially against countries with fast bowling. He was an exceptional player of the short ball. And Alan Green who was probably the best young player I ever saw, which is a big statement to make. I've seen a lot of good players, but he was as good as I've ever seen. He left the scene. Adrian Jones went to Somerset. There was so much discontent that, you know, well, that was it. So it was time, you know, to stick out a couple of years and move on.
What was it like physically in those days, Gunner, playing probably 6 days a week, all the travelling that you had to do? Sometimes you had to go from a 3-day match to a 1-day game and then back to a 3-day match. You were keeping wicket to Imran Khan and Garth LaRue. You were captain. You were expected to make runs as well. It must have been physically as well as mentally really, really hard.
Yeah, I found that difficult. I mean, it was a dangerous time of life, really, because as you rightly say there, we were playing, I remember one game we played on the Saturday we played Saturday at Hove in a championship, start of a championship game. On the Sunday, we played a 40-over game at Swansea. So we finished the game on the Saturday night. And in those days, it didn't have the luxury coaches that chaps have got now. And so we drove, and God knows what hours we got into Swansea. It's a lively spot, Swansea. So, you know, it was not a bad place to go, really, I suppose, on a Saturday night. But the problem is you played Sunday, and then you finished at 6:30, and you were back to play Monday, while the opposition had stayed in Hove and had the Sunday off, and they were ready for the Monday. That was a difficult period of cricket. I'm so surprised there was not as many car crashes as, you know, probably the roads weren't quicker as they are now, but, you know, there was no more accidents besides the Surrey boys had a, you know, terrible one. So that was always in the back of your mind. And then you were travelling. We always played Kent at Tunbridge Wells or at Hastings, which was always nearer to them than it was to us. They stayed, we travelled back. You know, so all those little niggly things were always going on. But it was desperately hard work then. Desperately. You know, on a Monday night, there's a committee meeting to discuss a softer loo paper in the ladies' toilet and more fairy cakes for tea. You know, I remember one of those, and it's, if you ever come to my house, it's there framed for you to have a read. It's a wonderful read. In the meantime, we lost LaRue, Khan, Mendes, Jones, Reeve. So I think 7 players went out the door, but we got softer toilet paper in the ladies' toilet and more fairy cakes for tea for the committee. Wonderful performance.
So when you did retire, you were probably ready for it, but did you have sort of harbour ambitions about being a coach?
No, I didn't. Not at the time. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into business, and I wasn't sure. A couple of my friends in Berkshire were involved in maintenance of sports grounds, which I'd done in some of the winters when I went abroad to New Zealand. And I enjoyed that, sitting on the tractor, cutting grass, making lovely stripes, painting very nice white lines. That's probably what I was thinking of doing. But then I got a phone call from Don Bennett from Middlesex and Mike Gatting to say that Clive Radley had been appointed as MCC coach. Would I be interested in doing it? And at that stage, it was my last season at Sussex, and it was May. And I think we played a 40-over game at Warwickshire, and I was in the team 3 times and out the team 3 times with weather conditions and whatever. And it was just a Horlicks, really. It was just silly. And so that sort of made my mind up. Sussex weren't very keen on me going. Norman Gifford was then coach. No, look, going to stay another year or maybe 2, see where you are then. But that made the mind up for me. You know, we drove back to Brighton from that, nearly getting killed by Alan Donald. That also helped my opinion that I should be getting out a bit quicker. So I got back and spoke to my wife about it. She was unhappy in some respects. That meant that we had to leave Brighton, which is a place that she adored, I adored. But it was, you know, she understood it was another chapter. It was a chapter that I was there 10.5 seasons. For 7 of those, I thoroughly enjoyed. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great fun.
Because you